Nothing.
Hi everyone, it's Charlie. This is going to be part 2 of my Avengers Endgame Easter Eggs video. There was so many, the movie was 3 hours long. Of course, I had to break it into 2 videos. So if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the Marvel videos. It's only going to get crazier. We're even supposed to get a new Spider-Man Far From Home trailer in the next week or so. So don't worry, I'll remind everybody about that at the end of the video. There's a new round of that Infinity Gauntlet giveaway too. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave your favorite Easter egg from the movie on the video. Obviously, very big spoiler warning for Avengers Endgame. If you have not seen the movie yet, we'll be talking about specific stuff, including the very end of the film. So picking up where I left off with the part 1 video, they're in 2012 still. Captain America is fighting himself. The new footage that they shot was also another Easter egg for Thor: The Dark World. Remember when Loki turned into Captain America just to make fun of Thor when they were getting ready to escape from Asgard? When they're taking Loki into custody, they take the elevator down, they have that funny Hulk joke, but they tell Loki to turn into Steve Rogers' Captain America so as not to draw suspicion when they're on the ground floor. They don't want everybody freaking out that Loki is walking around with them. I already talked about all the Easter eggs with Loki disappearing, about the logic of what happened to that Loki. He created a new timeline. He could come back in present day. They could serve that as the basis for the Loki TV series they're doing during Marvel Phase 4. But they're unsuccessful. The Tesseract gets away. They still need to go back in time to the 1970s because the Tesseract was in that S.H.I.E.L.D. facility that Tony Stark's father and a younger version of Hank Pym Ant-Man were both working at, the birthplace of Captain America in New Jersey. When the camera pans up on that base, it's right out of Winter Soldier. If you remember the bunker where they found Arnim Zola had uploaded himself to the computers, that's the base that they go back to. We get our Stan Lee cameo. He zooms by as a 1970s version of himself. Stan Lee was very active during the 1970s, so he's dressed, his haircut, his mustache looks exactly like it did during 1970. The Russos claim that this is the last cameo that he filmed before he passed away, so I don't know what they're going to do about Stan Lee inside Spider-Man Far From Home. They'll probably find some other way to honor him. But when they go into that S.H.I.E.L.D. facility, Steve Rogers' name is Roscoe, which is actually a reference to a character, Roscoe Simmons, from the Captain America comics that briefly picked up the mantle of Captain America during the 1970s. Iron Man uses the name Howard Potts, and obviously they run into Hank Pym's lab, which is in that facility. You see a 1970s version of the Ant-Man helmet. You see a very, very young looking Michael Douglas, just letting you know that they can do that pretty easily with these actors at this point. They run into Yvette Nicole Brown from Community, like I said during the last video. She was the other Community cameo during this. Captain America accidentally runs into Peggy Carter, who's talking about an Agent Braddock. Remember, this is the 1970s, who is Captain Britain in the comics. I wouldn't say it's them officially canonizing Captain Britain to the MCU, but it sounds like if he was in the MCU, he was alive and active around the 1970s, so he'd be an old man in present day. Iron Man goes down into the bowels of the facility to look for the Tesseract in storage and runs into his father in the 1970s. They joke about being a dad because remember Iron Man is a dad during the film, so they actually have something in common. He basically gives him the exact same speech saying the things that he wished he'd said at the beginning of Civil War when they're using the BARFing technology. He gets the moment with his father that he never got in real life. They have a cameo from Jarvis on the Agent Carter series. I believe that this is the very first time that an actor that was a character on a TV series first now jumped into the movies. Like, people wonder if TV actors will ever appear in the movies. This is the very first time that's happened. They also drop an Arnim Zola reference because his father, Howard Stark, is looking for Arnim Zola, who hadn't uploaded himself into the mainframe at that point. Speaking of Red Skull related stuff, when Black Widow and Hawkeye go to Vormir to get the Soul Stone, she learns from the very first time during the introduction that her father's name was Ivan. She says she never knew her father because of the Red Room program that she was inducted into, so this is the first time she's hearing that. Jumping over to Morag in 2014, so Nebula and War Machine go to get the Power Stone from Peter Quill. They make all kinds of Indiana Jones references. They make fun of Peter Quill because they do the Guardians of the Galaxy intro, but you're seeing it from their perspective, so you don't hear the music really loud, so he's just dancing around looking kind of silly. Obviously, it's the 2014 version of Nebula that interfaces with the one from present day. She finds out what's going on, alerts Thanos. They capture that version of Nebula, take her Pym particles, reverse engineer them. That's how they brought all of Thanos' 2014 ship, his troops, his army, and the future version of Nebula back to present day. We go to the events of Thor the Dark World. There weren't that many Easter eggs, but they did a brand new scene with Renee Russo as Thor's mother. It was wonderful. She reminds us she was raised by witches. She's the one that taught Loki how to use magic, so she can see right through what they're trying to do. You're from the future, but before they go back, Thor says, wait 1 second, and reaches out to call Mjolnir because it hasn't been destroyed yet. Thor Ragnarok hasn't happened. Frigga jokes, sometimes it takes a second. Thor grabs it and says, yay, I'm worthy, I'm still worthy, and they go back to present day. If you're wondering what happened to it at the end of the film, Captain America took it back just like he took the Infinity Stones back to the places that they took them from. So Thor, during the events of the Dark World, got his hammer back eventually. They come back to present day. Iron Man makes his version of the Infinity Gauntlet with the Stark technology, which he did during the comics. Hulk wears the Infinity Gauntlet because he's the only one powerful enough to wield it at that moment. Hulk also wielded the Infinity Gauntlet in the Ultimate Comics. Iron Man wielded it in the Ultimate Comics as well. There's a lot of different people that have wielded the Infinity Gauntlet. Even Spider-Man, who we see playing hot potato with it later in the movie. Nebula picks the gauntlet up at one point. She wore it during the Infinity Gauntlet saga. They had to get it off of her. Captain America has wielded the Infinity Gauntlet in the comics. Strangely enough, though, he does not wield it during the movie. They snap everyone back, but it's in 2023, 5 years in the future from when the original snap happened, so I'll explain the Spider-Man twist at the end and the Captain America twist. The Russos already confirmed an earlier theory that I had. But as they start to fight the 2014 version of Thanos, Thor dual wields Stormbreaker and Mjolnir. During the fight, the hammer is called, but it comes to Captain America. He wields it just like he wielded Thor's hammer in the comics. It was one of the best moments of the film. Everyone in my theater screamed out loud. When it looks like all is lost and Captain America is standing against Thanos' army by himself, you get Falcon on the comms saying on your left, which is a reference to Winter Soldier on your left. In Doctor Strange and Wong, Portal, almost every single MCU character you've ever seen in history into the battlefield to help back him up. This is sort of the biggest version of a splash page that they've ever done in a scene on screen. It's like the Uber version of the airport battle, leaving Captain America to give the biggest Avengers Assemble you've ever seen on screen. There are between 30 and 40 characters on screen at once, including the original Avengers that we've seen during the course of the movie. So you have Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hawkeye, Hulk, Falcon, War Machine, Scarlet Witch, Ant-Man, the Wasp, Spider-Man comes back, Star-Lord, our version of Nebula, but Gamora from 2014 because older Nebula killed the younger version of Nebula. Remember, you can't change the past, so even though she kills her, it's not going to wink older Nebula out of existence. Drax, Rocket, Groot comes back as teenage Groot. Mantis, Doctor Strange, Wong, of course, Black Panther, Okoye. Black Panther is actually the first person to walk through the portal after Sam Falcon says on your left, which I thought was kind of weird. I thought it would have been nicer if he came out first, but I guess they wanted Black Panther to come back first just because he was such a huge character for everyone during 2018. Bucky, Valkyrie, Captain Marvel comes back. She even fights with Thanos for a brief period. She's actually so strong that she's almost able to solo the gauntlet by herself till Thanos uses the Power Stone to punch her a couple miles away. Shuri, M'Baku, Pepper Potts comes back in her Rescue Dawn armor, full-on armor. She and Iron Man go back-to-back fighting with each other during the film. Korg comes back, a whole bunch of other sorcerers from Doctor Strange and the other sanctums around the planet come to help out. The Wakandan army, even Howard the Duck comes back, Kraglin, and all the Ravagers that are still alive come back. Because it's the 2014 version of Thanos 2, though, all of the Black Order come back. Ebony Maw, Corvus Glaive, Proxima Midnight, Cull Obsidian, the Outriders, the Chitauri, and a whole bunch of other larger creatures that we did not see during Infinity War. A lot of people also asking about the Iron Patriot armor too. Like, wait a minute, wasn't this Rhodey's armor a long time ago? They used this briefly. What's the deal with this? I think they just wanted to have more Iron Man armors on screen during this moment. They have an A-Force moment during the film. If you're not familiar with A-Force, they're just a team of women that are basically like another Avengers side team in the comics. So they have like a giant team up with Captain Marvel when she's facing down Thanos. I think that was just them winking at the idea of A-Force. I don't know if they're ever going to do an A-Force movie, but they haven't announced plans or anything like that. When Spider-Man reunites with Iron Man hugs him on the spot. He says, this is nice, which is a nice callback to Spider-Man Far From Home when he thought that he was hugging him and he's like, no, we're not there yet, kid. When Iron Man dies, he also sort of has the reverse moment that Iron Man had with him during Infinity War when Spider-Man died. Spider-Man also activates instant kill mode when he gets dogpiled by a bunch of Outriders. Activate instant kill mode. Black Panther remembers Hawkeye's name, Clint, so he apparently does care this time. When Thanos thinks that he's won the day, he tries to snap the Stark Tech gauntlet but finds that Iron Man has yoinked all the Infinity Stones to his gauntlet. He says, "I am inevitable." Then Iron Man goes out on his very famous line from the end of Iron Man 1, "I am Iron Man," and snaps all of Thanos' forces out of existence. He did not snap Gamora from 2014 out of existence. That's why Peter Quill is looking at a Gamora display at the end of the film, because he wants to go find her, because she turned against Thanos, so she's kind of a good person now, but she's not good like the original version of Gamora that we knew. During Iron Man's funeral, they have pretty much all the bigger Avengers characters, their families, and side characters with them. They say goodbye to him, and they sort of eulogize him with that original arc reactor, proof that Tony Stark does have a heart. Remember, the time travel platform design was actually made to look like this when they all had their hands in the middle. Just another way to visually reference how important the Iron Man character was to the MCU within the context of the story, but also how important that original Iron Man film was for building Marvel Studios and everything that came after. The kid from Iron Man 3 comes back, but he's a teenager now. He's way older because it's been a long time since that movie happened, and on top of that, there was a 5-year time jump. When Happy sits down with his daughter, she says, "I want a cheeseburger." He almost starts crying on the spot and says, "You know what? Your father really liked cheeseburgers," which is a reference to the original Iron Man movie when he first escaped the cave, came back and said, "What do you want to do first?" "I want to get a cheeseburger and I want to call a press conference." Thor officially gives leadership of Asgard to Valkyrie, calling her queen, so we'll see how they address that in future movies, but Thor officially joins the Guardians of the Galaxy, calling it Asgardians of the Galaxy, which they actually did in the comics briefly recently. Like I said, Peter Quill is planning on going to find Gamora during that. That'll probably be the events of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I don't know, obviously, what other stuff Thor's going to be doing during that movie, but Adam Warlock is also going to be a big character, and Thor's one of the most powerful people in the MCU, so they'll just have somebody who's powerful enough to counter Adam Warlock. The Russos also confirmed my theory about Spider-Man Far From Home in the 5-year time jump. So in the trailers that we've seen so far, all of his core classmates, basically the debate team, are together. They're the same age. The idea is that all of them got snapped when they're brought back to the same age, which explains how they're all the same age during Spider-Man Far From Home, and it seems like no time has passed, even though it's 5 years later. But there are some of his classmates, probably the ones that we've never seen on screen before, who are 5 years older and are now in college or out having jobs. So unless the Russos are bold-faced lying to us again, then Spider-Man Far From Home takes place during 2023 after the events of Endgame, which we kind of thought before. We knew it would take place after Endgame, but we didn't know about the 5-year time jump. Then they have the Captain America scene where he has to take all the Infinity Stones back to where they stole them from, and Mjolnir back to Thor the Dark World. He and Bucky have a conversation saying, "Don't do anything stupid till I get back," Steve says, and Bucky says, "How can I? You're taking all the stupid with you." That's the exact same conversation they had way back in the 1940s when Bucky went off to serve in World War II. When they try to bring him back, though, it doesn't work. He shows up on a bench as Old Man Cap. So there are a lot of questions about the logic of this situation because very clearly he lived out his life with Peggy Carter in the past. The Russos confirm my original theory that the movie is sticking to its time travel logic. So what happened is because you can't change anything in the past, whenever you do something in the past that's different, you just create an alternate timeline. So what happened is Captain America goes back to have that dance that he promised to Peggy Carter, "Save that dance for me." Their song plays over the credits. He says to Falcon, "You know what? I don't think I'm going to tell you about that girl," because he has the wedding ring on his finger. Clearly Peggy Carter was his wife, but he gives Falcon the shield and says, "Try it on." Falcon probably won't debut as the next Captain America till the next Avengers movie, so it could be 4 years before we see that, but they'll probably give us more explainers about that later this summer. The way the Captain America winds up on this bench, per the Russos confirming my theory, is that because Captain America was changing the timeline and creating a new one when he stayed with Peggy in the past in the 1940s, what happened is that he had to come back later to our own timeline, which means that he probably saved some Pym particles or got some along the way and saved the time travel suit. So that's how he wound up coming back, then just arranged to walk up and sit on this bench before this moment happened. So it wasn't him just directly coming back to this moment, it was him coming back to some other earlier point in time and then just sort of kind of trotting up and sitting on the bench, knowing that this would all be happening in the next couple of minutes. But the Russos did confirm that he lived out his life with Peggy Carter here. That's an alternate timeline. That's not our own timeline. Very interesting, they also said that they couldn't answer any more details about exactly what year he went back to because they might cover that story in another Disney Plus streaming show or in another movie. So there will be more Chris Evans, Captain America stuff in the MCU at some point. It just might happen in a very roundabout way. There's no traditional mid-credit scene, but at the end, there's sort of like a post-credits, end-credits moment where you hear Iron Man hammering. I believe it's actually 6 times. I've listened to it a couple times now, and I used to think it was 3, but it's 6 times on metal. It's just the sound of him hammering the Iron Man armor Mark I in the cave in that original Iron Man film, which is just sort of callback to the beginning of all this stuff. So if you spotted any other Easter eggs that I didn't mention in the video, just post them below in the comments. And like I said, there's a new Spider-Man Far From Home trailer that's going to drop in the next week. Of course, I'll do a video for it as soon as they post it. Congratulations to the giveaway winner from my last big Marvel video, IONU4. Please email me on the About page of my channel so I can